I want to tell you about my least favorite man in the world. This is a man who put together an organization that was essentially a shrine to his own swollen ego. A man who dedicated his life to the preservation of his narrow and inane view of what families can be. A man whose life's work made the lives of countless people immeasurably worse, all in the name of Jesus. And somehow he's still alive. His name is Dr. James Dobson, and he thinks you should be having more kids. If you're a Christian, anyway. My name is Josh Borman.
I'm June Sternbach.
And this is Ill Conceived, a podcast about natalism. Well, June, I just ate a delicious bit of lamb over rice.
Oh my God.
I am ready to record another great episode of our podcast.
Holy shit, that's why you've been burping like crazy.
I was just recently introduced to the concept of the phrase, I should say, goated bite. Have you heard this?
I haven't until you just said this. This sounds like something that you would find on TikTok. This is like a purely like Gen Z creation.
I don't think it is. I think it's just, I don't know. This was introduced to me by a friend, but like the moment I heard that phrase, I was like, oh no. This is never leaving my head anymore.
It's so intuitive. I know exactly what it means. It's like that.
Exactly.
It's that centerpiece of the burger, that very perfect center. That's just like the best bite of the burger, or like the center of the grilled cheese where there's no crust.
Or maybe it's the first bite. Either way,
Yeah.
You know when you've had the goated bite. It's like, goated bite.
It changes your life. No, it is the most satisfying part of the meal. I instinctively know what this is.
And I want to sort of give you, the listener, a goated bite of podcasting goodness. But before we get to today's topic, was there anything about the past couple weeks that you had wanted to talk about up top before we get into the life and times of Dr. James Dobson, the man who I hate with a burning passion?
I can see you seething with rage over this guy.
Oh, yeah.
The way that you've talked about this man, just ever since we've started talking about this show, you could not wait to talk about this man.
Oh, yeah.
But before we get to that, so in the last episode, we talked a little bit about IVF and just like the very interesting, complicated relationship that the Republican Party and like the religious right tends to have with IVF. And something that was pointed out to us by, I don't remember who, but a listener mentioned that Donald Trump during the campaign for the 2024 cycle happened to mention at a rally in Michigan that he wanted all IVF treatments to be totally free, like universal coverage. Which I totally missed this.
Yeah, I don't know if this was an actual like campaign policy. My guess is that it's just some shit he said, because I'm looking right now at an Associated Press article from August 29 of last year, 2024, and I quote here, former President Donald Trump says that if he wins a second term, he wants to make IVF treatment free for women, but did not detail how he would fund his plan or precisely how it would work. I'm announcing today in a major statement that under the Trump administration, your government will pay for, or your insurance company will be mandated to pay for, all costs associated with IVF treatment, he said at an event in Michigan. Because we want more babies, to put it nicely.
Yeah, and he just hasn't done that. He's done a few things with IVF, and I'm leaning towards this is just some bullshit he said, because he starts ranting during these rallies. He just starts going, he just starts autopiloting and just starts saying bullshit.
It's free association. It's like a fish show, except rather than like guitar licks and fresh, whatever, it's talking about either this or like how big somebody's penis is. Like it's one or the other, and
the big,
nowhere in between.
Strong, beautiful generals, whatever.
Beautiful
he's obsessed
men.
with. Yeah,
absolutely.
So
we stand a bisexual legend. As regards this specific piece of quote unquote policy, I haven't seen anything to actually indicate that this was real. There was an article from U.S. News and World Report from June of this year, so about a month ago actually, saying that experts worry that people are delaying their IVF treatments in the hopes that Trump will deliver on a campaign promise to make IVF treatment free. I just like this from the article. However, there is another worry that the recommendations won't have any teeth at all or will kick the can down the road. Yeah, kicking the can down the road is nothing this administration has ever done before. That would be the first time. Lord.
Yeah, IVF bros, I think we have an L. This is an L. This is not a goated bite.
Huge L.
No goated bite.
Not a goated bite.
No.
Well, let's get into today's topic, shall we?
Absolutely.
June, I want to talk to you about a guy.
The worst guy.
I know how much you love a guy. A guy among guys here is Dr. James Dobson. Now, I know we have mentioned focus on the family. In fact, in the IVF episode, you were able to pull a couple articles from their website talking about in vitro fertilization.
Right.
And we've done a few other things, I think, mentioning them. But my question is, before I get into my bullshit, and there will be a lot of it, what do you know about Dobson, focus on the family, that whole thing?
So he's a guy, but I think I'm famously a lover of guys, insane guys
Yes.
online. But he actually might be the first guy that I had ever learned about.
Really?
I think probably. I've known a little bit about him since I was probably in early high school, primarily because around that time, the mid 2010s, early 2010s, it was I don't know if you remember, but online discourse was heavy in the atheist versus Christianity world.
Mm-hmm.
That was just a lot of online discourse at the time. And the creationist specifically part of that debate was really, really, it was kind of a centerpiece from the Christian side. And James Dobson was a big creationist from everything I remember about the guy. And he's a real traditional Christian in the way, the most evil ways possible.
Traditional is the right way to put it. This is a man who, if you want to talk about every stereotypical idea that you might have of what a conservative evangelical Protestant is like, James Dobson is that fucking guy. And the reason that I wanted to talk about him on the show is that although focus on the family is not a natalist project in the sense of birth rates are the most important thing in the world, right?
Right.
James Dobson himself definitely thinks that birth rates are one of the most important things in the world. And when we get to the end of today's episode, I actually have some stuff that he has said pretty recently about this, within the past few months even.
You mentioned up the top here that he is sadly still alive.
Yes.
It's always these people that live until they're 101 years old. It's always these freaks.
He was born in 1936.
Come on.
He turns 90 next year, 90 years old.
Why is it always these freaks that live this long? What do they do? What are they doing?
I think that they have the ability to just live off of their hate. I think that their hate drives them and pushes them because James Dobson is such a spiteful man. Everything about him comes from this deep-seated place of spite and wanting to not let somebody else get one over on him. And that is something that you're going to see time and time again with this guy.
So you're telling me my deep-seated hatred of conservatives will let me live until I'm in my 90s.
I hope so. As long as your hate remains pure, you know.
Oh, it's pure. It's Bushido. Yeah.
So Dr. James Dobson, like I said, and I'm going to refer to, he loves, by the way, if you don't call him Dr. Dobson, he'll get very mad at you. Dobson was born in Shreveport, Louisiana in 1936. And basically he descended from a long line of Nazarene pastors. His dad was a pastor, his grandfather was a pastor, his great-grandfather was a pastor. And the Church of the Nazarene is a Protestant denomination. They're very conservative, they're very traditionalist. They're pretty extreme even within the world of evangelical Christianity. Their whole deal is once you become a Christian, once you are born again, you as a person start becoming holier and holier as God's presence begins to dwell within you. So there's the moment of, I've accepted Jesus into my heart. At that time, you become a new creation, as they like to say. And from then on, the old you is discarded in favor of this new being. And because this new being has the divine inspiration breathed into it, it undergoes a process by which all of the bad things are slowly removed and replaced with good things that are inspired by the Holy Spirit.
So how does this work if you were born into the religion? Does that imply you were always this pure, or your like religious meter starts going up from your birth? Or is this like a purely like born again thing because you're like so evil, because you're so sick and twisted that you have like a hell energy? You have a hell bar above your head that needs to be depleted.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really fully understand this doctrine, if I'm being honest. This is not something that I have any frame of reference for in terms of my own upbringing. Like, I grew up Christian on the Protestant side and on the evangelical side of things, right? So I also grew up with the understanding that, like, the main thing that Christians need to do is get other people to become Christians. That was part of my upbringing. But I didn't have this sense of, because I am a Christian, I'm becoming better than you. And that's something that Dobson believes.
So this is like the real crazy of the crazies.
Crazy, yes, but
maybe not crazy. Maybe that's like a very reductive way to put it. But just very, I mean, it's very, I almost want to say self-centered in a sense. Yeah.
Yes, so I think self-centered is a good way of putting it. It is solipsistic, I think.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't really understand the way that one interacts with the world around them. It's just like, I'm awesome now, and I'm getting more and more awesome because of the fact that I am undergoing this process of what they call Christian perfection or sanctification. Now,
the awesome sauce bar.
That's right. So the awesome sauce bar grows and grows and grows and grows. And as it keeps growing, you get better. You actually just become straight up a better person. And that is why when Dobson seems very much holier than thou, it's because he thinks he literally is holier than thou.
Okay, so that's the appeal here.
Mm-hmm. A little bit about this guy's background then. Beyond just the fact that his family tree, you know, he had a long line of evangelists that he descended from, right? Mm-hmm. Growing up, he was subject to a great deal of physical punishment. This is a big part of his story. He talks about it all the time. His mom would apparently beat him with physical objects with some regularity. And he writes about this experience in his debut book, which is called Dare to Discipline, and that was published in 1970. So here's what he says. The day I learned the importance of staying out of reach shines like a neon light in my mind. I made the costly mistake of sassing her when I was about 4 feet away. I knew I had crossed the line and wondered what she would do about it. It didn't take long to find out. Mom wheeled around to grab something with which to express her displeasure, and her hand landed on a girdle. These were the days when a girdle was lined with rivets and mysterious panels. She drew back and swung that abominable garment in my direction, and I can still hear it whistling through the air. The intended blow caught me across the chest, followed by a multitude of straps and buckles wrapping themselves around my midsection. She gave me an entire thrashing with one blow. But from that day forward, I measured my words carefully when addressing my mother. I never spoke disrespectfully to her again, even when she was 75 years old.
That is horrifying. I mean, like, something I've been thinking about, especially especially with this, is do you think that when older people talk about like, oh, kids these days, I feel like a lot of people, and James Dobson's probably not unique in this. This was probably a very common experience as a kid for the era he grew up in. Do you think that they have these views on like children and like Gen Z or whatever because like the way they were brought up, they were like beat, they have a totally different conception of what parents should be?
I think that whatever upbringing you have, you acclimate to seeing it as normal, right? And then when you grow up and you talk to other people about their upbringings, you learn about what was or was not actually normal in your upbringing.
Right.
I think that for people of Dobson's generation, because again, this guy was born in 1936, he's not technically a boomer. He's too old to be a boomer.
Wait, he's too old. He's the silent generation.
Because there was a certain amount of physical abuse that was accepted as standard by people, I think, across that generation. I think they all took this as a given. And as time has gone by, people have started to, I think, reckon with the consequences of that upbringing and be like, hey, getting beaten as a kid actually sucked ass.
Not good.
And it made me question aspects of my relationships with my parents, even if, I loved my parents a lot, and that's not uncommon. In fact, Dobson, in his writings, will talk about how much what's interesting, he doesn't talk about his dad very much. And so I don't know if that's because his relationship with his dad just wasn't very good. Maybe his dad was even more monstrous than his mom. I don't know. But these negative aspects of the upbringing are seen as color and texture in something, at least in the case of Dobson, that is generally positive. And when he tells this story, which he does with regularity and has with regularity, he relates it as this really funny thing. It's like,
really?
Yeah.
This is like dark. People probably very much relate to this. I mean, I can imagine why he says this. People probably heavily resonate with this, but he does that for like a laugh.
Yeah, he has. And he's like, oh yeah, I sure didn't do anything. I sure didn't talk back to my mom after that. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
No, it makes me sad too. But the thing is, as they famously say, hurt people hurt people. And that is the case with this fucking guy. So Dobson gets his undergrad from Pasadena College, which is now known as Point Loma Nazarene University, in 1958. And he meets his wife, Shirley, there. It's funny to hear and read how Dobson describes himself from this era because he really wants you to be impressed with him. He'll talk about how he's like, I was out there playing tennis and I wore these shorts and my legs looked so fucking good. And Shirley saw me and she was like, damn, boy, you got some nice legs. And I was like, oh, shut up, baby. I know it. Like that is how he talks because along with everything else, he seems to be deeply insecure about a number of things. But again, rather than addressing any of this, he just takes it as a given that everybody thinks like him.
Right. Something that I've noticed with older generations is that they don't really think about mental health very much, or they fail to even recognize that it exists. I was talking to someone who, this was like a year ago or so. He is very clearly autistic, and I was talking to my friend whose parent that was. I'm like, does he know he's autistic? Because he like lashes out in certain ways sometimes, like the father does. He's like in his 60s. And she's like, no, like he doesn't ever want to go like to a doctor to like even think about this. And I think there is just something, and maybe it's like this trauma that he grew up with in the case of James Dobson, where you just don't think about that sort of thing because maybe it'll get you like a physical punishment. Maybe it'll make you, it'll be like PTSD traumatizing. Like genuinely, that could be what this is.
And that's the thing, right? You talk about acting out. Generally speaking, the model that he grew up with was that when he acted out, he would be subject to physical punishment. And that is exactly the model of parenting that he built his entire career on. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
That's bleak. I don't like to hear that.
Well, I've got bad news for you about the rest of this episode, then.
Shit, you're telling me James Dobson's a bad motherfucker? Fuck.
I'm saying that, not in the cool way. Dobson gets his PhD in child development from the University of Southern California in 1967. On graduating, he pretty quickly joins the faculty there, and he also gets a job as an attending psychiatrist at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles, which is a major children's hospital affiliated with USC Medical. And here, he sees firsthand, and this is how he puts it, right, that permissive parenting, this culture of just like letting kids do what they want, is creating little monsters.
Oh no. Okay, so he wants children to not be able to just like wander the streets, have fun, do like get what they want, get treats, get like a little present every once in a while. He thinks that's Like he's anti-Treatler is what he's saying.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, because he saw some shit. You talk about like kids who are getting admitted to the psychiatric ward of a hospital, right? These are kids with real problems. And he was seeing a lot of dysfunctional children who came from dysfunctional families. And that's something that's going to leave an impression on anybody.
Absolutely.
But it seems that rather than trying to be like, okay, what actually caused these problems? What are the material causes of these problems? What are the practical causes of these problems? Instead, he saw kids who he just considered to be little shits who were out of control. And his solution was, you need to get these little shits under control.
So he is like pro-beating. He is like actually like maybe that will actually get kids in control. That will teach them to not disrespect the parents, to not act out. Oh my God.
Because back in my day,
we drank water from the hose. Yeah.
And beat our children with girdles. Exactly. And so in 1970, Dobson gets his first book published by Tyndale House, which is a Christian publisher. It's called Dare to Discipline. The previous excerpt I read is from that book. And it is a reactionary text, and I mean that in every sense. But in one sense in particular, it's reactionary, which is that it is reacting to a trend of child rearing popularized by a guy named Dr. Benjamin Spock. Have you ever heard of, or are you at all familiar with Dr. Spock?
I know Spock from Star Trek. I don't know.
That's Mr. Spock.
Yeah, not Doctor. I'm not familiar with the doctor.
That's a different guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Benjamin Spock, also a child psychologist, noted socialist. He actually ran for president one time, sort of a quixotic run under a socialist party. The first thing that he said is like, you're better at this than you think you are. Like, trust your instincts. But then thing number two was, if you focus on your child's unique individuality and sort of what they are becoming as a person, identifying those specific individual characteristics is going to aid you in parenting those kids. And so if your kid is being rebellious because, I don't know, they want to go run around and play outside, that's probably because they like running around and playing outside. And you can just, max the amount of time that they run around and play outside, as an example.
But it doesn't sound like our friend James Dobson is a fan of the, look at behavior to kind of determine things that your child likes. He's more of like, he doesn't want to run outside. He just needs to get beat a little bit. We just actually have to punish him for not doing what I want.
Exactly. Like if the kid is running around outside, you say, okay, little Jimmy, time to come inside. And your kid throws a little shit fit because they don't want to come back in. They're doing that. The kid is doing that not because, I don't know, let's say they were having fun playing outside and now they don't get to do that anymore. And they don't know how to control their emotional reaction to not being able to do that thing anymore. Dobson thinks they're doing it to test you. You, the parent. They're doing it to get your goat and piss you off.
That is so weird. That's like what they think God is doing to them every day. It's like everything's a test. Everything, it can't just be this is like a behavior. This is like how a kid is. It's a kid. It's a test.
Yeah. And the way that you need to then deal with that test is to say, I won't let you test me. It's time for the belt. And I quote here from Dare to Discipline, "These occasions should be anticipated as important events because they provide the opportunity to convey verbal and nonverbal messages to the boy or girl that cannot be expressed at other times. Let me again stress that I'm not suggesting that the parents use excessive punishment in these encounters. To the contrary, a small amount of discomfort goes a long way towards softening a child's rebellious spirit. However, the spanking should be of sufficient magnitude to cause genuine tears."
Oh my God.
After emotional ventilation, the child will often want to crumple to the breast of his parent, and he should be welcomed with open, warm, loving arms. At that moment, you can talk heart to heart. You can tell him how much you love him and how important he is to you. You can explain why he was disciplined and how he can avoid the difficulty next time.
The use of the word excessive there, I feel like is holding up all of that pretty well there. But I'm curious. I don't know if you know or go into this a little bit here at all. But does he still? Because this was published many decades ago. Does he still hold to this belief about like punishing children?
Yes. Yes.
My God. Okay.
He has for his entire life. And I think the thing that I find most upsetting about this is just thinking about the way that a child connects with their parents.
Yeah.
I actually think that if a parent flies off the handle and like smacks their kid out of anger, that is easier for a kid to understand than something like this. Because this is calculated physical abuse with an emotional component, right? It's being like, okay, you're going to get it. Whack, 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 whack.
Yeah.
Kid starts crying. You let them cry for a little while. They come to you and you hold them and you're like, now you know why daddy had to do that to you, right? That's fucked.
That's evil. That actually is really fucking evil. It's so, I mean, it's manipulative. That's what that is.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, like a parent will always have ultimate control over the kid. That's just kind of how that is. But that is an insane level of manipulation that like will completely alter the course of probably the rest of the child's life, their relation with you. It'll alter how they view you, how much they can trust you. It will completely change everything about your relationship with your kid.
In the wake of this book, right, this is the thing that puts him on the map, Dobson. And using some of the proceeds from the sale of this book and a few other books, which we're going to talk about in a second, Dobson establishes an organization called Focus on the Family.
No, he used it for evil. He used the evil for evil. Fuck.
So this was in 1977. And the reason that he founded this organization was to produce a radio show. The radio show of the same name, also called Focus on the Family. And this was just a broadcast where he would give out great parenting tips. Really, really good stuff. And talk about, like, here's what families should do. And from pretty early on, it was about two main things. First of all, it was advice for parents, right? But secondly, it was about what is going on with families and with culture, and how is our, evil, pernicious American secular culture undermining the traditional American family. It was always a twofold thing. But the primary emphasis was on the parenting tips.
He has to have that villain. There has to be the counter to they're taking this away from us. We have to defeat them, yeah.
So this started as a weekly broadcast going to 40 radio stations, 40, and eventually would expand to a daily broadcast that would reach thousands and thousands of radio stations nationwide. And throughout Dobson's entire career, this was his primary means of reach and influence.
Something I was thinking about recently was I feel like in the 2024 election, we've still been trying to find the leftist Joe Rogan.
It's me.
And that absolutely.
I have two podcasts now. I'm the Joe Rogan of the left.
But sadly, the Democratic Party isn't aware of that quite yet. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's been a lot of discussion about how did the right get so good at like podcasts and like the information sphere? And if you just go back enough, the right, conservatives, religious people have always been really good at using whatever communication media was available at the time. Like the right, I mean, this is a great example of the religious right kind of taking over radio at the time, obviously with like Rush Limbaugh, all these people mastered public radio.
Yeah, and the pivot was very natural, especially for something like Focus on the Family Radio, which is a half-hour broadcast, right? And they moved to podcasts, actually, back when you could still get podcasts on your iPod. They were ahead of the curve there.
See, these people always follow the different, they follow the communication methods. They somehow just know they have it in them.
And it's because they understand the importance of reaching people. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. But Dobson keeps churning out more books. I already talked about Dare to Discipline. Here's some other titles. I just want you to enjoy these. In 1974, he publishes Hide or Seek, How to Build Self-Esteem in Your Child.
Okay, probably by beating them is what helps.
Yeah, well, it's by being nice to them after you've beaten them. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't read it. 1975's What Wives Wish Their Husbands Knew About Women. I've read that one.
My God.
That one's
How is that one?
fucking hilarious.
Wait, that sounds like an amazing time. Would you recommend reading that? Should I read that?
Maybe. I mean, for entertainment value, you might enjoy it. I will say this.
It's 50 years old. It's
Yes.
55. I would love to know what they're saying in those days.
They were saying some shit. I will say there's a podcast called I Hate James Dobson. We've actually had them on the Worst of All Possible Worlds. And every other week, they talk about a different Dobson book. So if you really want to know what they're saying in these books, genuinely, go check that show out. It's really good.
I'll have to do that.
Other books by Dobson, Preparing for Adolescence, which was published in 1977, The Strong-Willed Child, which was published in 78, and my personal favorite title, Emotions. Can You Trust Them? Which was published in 1980.
That's an awesome title.
It's
also,
such a good title.
He's very prolific. He got out at least 6 or 5, I think 5 books in just a decade.
Yes, he was churning that shit out. And he's not content to just, keep publishing books either. In 1983, he founds something called the Family Research Council. Are you familiar with this?
I am not, no.
Okay, so this is sort of, if Focus on the Family Radio and Focus on the Family as an org was about let's get these parenting tips out there. Mm-hmm. The Family Research Council was very much the political side of his operation.
Okay, so Focus on the Family is kind of just like a proxy. It's to get those people in the door, to get his messaging out about the way he views family. But this, very intentional.
Yeah, you can think of it as Focus on the Family provides the resources to people. And then the Family Research Council was about organizing people and then mobilizing them to specific political ends.
Gotcha.
And the way that the Family Research Council worked, so rather than having just one national organization telling everybody what to do, it was a much more federated thing where there were 50 what they called family policy councils. These still exist, by the way. And each of them sort of operated with some degree of autonomy because they realized pretty early on that the way to make things change was to target the state level first.
I hate how smart these people are.
Yeah.
I really fucking hate it.
Yeah, same. Hard same.
Yeah.
And from this point, honestly, Dobson he's moving. I mean, he is making connections. He's making things happen. He no longer needs his job at USC. He actually leaves in 1984. In 1989, he scores a major coup, which is the final interview with Ted Bundy.
What? Okay, I did not know this existed.
Yes.
What do you mean? How did he get this? How did he?
Very carefully. He knew a guy he knew a guy who had been talking with Bundy on death row. And this guy then got in touch with Dobson. This guy who Bundy was talking to was a big fan of Dobson and his whole thing. And so when this guy got in touch with Dobson was like, oh my God, this could be a fucking bonanza.
Oh my God.
And
it would really put him on the map even more. Because
exactly.
I don't really know at the time. I wasn't alive back then. But I think people were paying attention to Bundy.
Oh, yeah. I was also not alive at the time. But if you want to hear more about how that interview came to be, what it sounded like, we actually did an episode on the Worst of All Possible Worlds about it with Jake from I Hate James Dobson. So go check that out if you're interested. But bottom line is, they were then able to, because they owned that footage then of the interview. And so they printed thousands, tens of thousands of videotapes and just sent them out and then put a little thing inside being like, if you have found this to be a helpful and inspiring thing, please send us some money.
Oh no! Did he say what it was? Would that piece of paper, the donation thing, say it's for a religious institution?
Well,
or was it just hey, just send us money?
Well, it said that they were doing work for the family and things of that nature. Because the whole Bundy interview was Bundy just fucking playing Dobson like a fiddle and being like, the pornos made me do it, and then Dobson being like, oh yeah, that's very interesting.
All right, if I can understand it now, there's this battle going on within. There are the conventions that you've been taught, there's the right and wrong that you learned as a child, and then there is this unbridled passion fueled by your plunge into hardcore violent pornography, and those things are at war with each other.
Yes.
And then with the alcohol diminishing the inhibitions, you let go.
Well, yes, and you can summarize it that way, and that's accurate, certainly. And it just occurred to me that some people would say that, well, I've seen that stuff and it doesn't do anything to me. And I can understand that. Virtually everyone can be exposed to so-called pornography, and while they're aroused to it to one degree or another, not go out and do anything wrong.
Well, addictions are like that. They affect some people more than they affect others.
Well,
but there is a percentage of people affected by hardcore pornography in a very violent way, and you're obviously one of them.
That was a major component, and I don't know why I was vulnerable to it. All I know is that it had an impact on me that was just so central to the development of the violent behavior that I engaged in.
And now Dobson has a higher national profile than ever. In 1990, Focus on the Family receives a $4 million grant from a charity founded by like a Colorado mining baron to build a new campus in Colorado Springs, relocate from California to Colorado Springs. That's exactly what they do. And they open their campus in Colorado Springs in 1993.
That area really just is the den of all religious evil.
I told you,
it
it's
just truly
fucked.
is. Yeah.
In 1999, this is according to the official Focus on the Family timeline, right? There's a claim on that timeline, which you can go to the website and see it right now, that Dobson announced a 10-year plan for leadership succession. That's what it says. Now, this is only sort of true. The original plan said, and I quote, that this is for implementation when Dr. Dobson either retires, reduces his involvement, or is no longer physically able to lead the organization. Since his health appears very strong at present, it is his intention, in concurrence with the board, to continue in his current capacity for at least another decade. And he even writes a newsletter about this, Dobson, where he also expresses his intention to stay in this shit for the long haul.
I can imagine why. It sounds like, for better or worse, he was a very charismatic, very well-known figure in the organization.
Yeah.
I know him from Focus on the Family. I don't know anyone else from Focus on the Family. He's the figurehead of that movement.
Right.
So it makes sense.
So I wanted now to introduce you. Remember how I introduced you to the 7 promises of a promise keeper?
Yes, I love those. I think about those every day.
Now, good. I'm glad to hear it. Here are the principles of Focus on the Family as an organization.
Ooh.
And I pulled this language from a web archive of their website circa 2001. But it's worth noting, you can go to their website right now, and these principles are still there. The wording is a little different, but this is still the core of their org. So, thing number 1. We believe that the ultimate purpose in living is to know and glorify God and to attain eternal life through Jesus Christ our Lord, beginning within our own families and then reaching out to a suffering humanity that does not know of his love and sacrifice.
Okay, so proselytize.
Yeah.
Give out the good word, convert, all that sort of thing.
Pretty much. They actually legally, since the first Trump administration, have been classified as a church. Like, they basically said to the IRS...
So they're tax exempt? No.
That's right.
Fuck
they
you.
said to the
my
IRS,
fucking God.
we're a church now, and I dare you to tell me otherwise. And the IRS did not do that.
Oh my God. How did they do that? Do they have like services? What was the reason? How did they do that? Did they just say it?
Yeah, pretty much. They don't have church services. They don't have a congregation. They don't have anything that you would associate with being a church in any traditional sense. They basically claim that because they offer services, not church services, but like practical services such as like family counseling and things like that, that they qualify as a church. But the reality of the situation is that all of these services you have to pay for, pretty much.
Right,
they're not offering this shit free. and you can't be a member of Focus on the Family in the way that you can be a member of a church either.
Right. Okay. And of course, they're a church. They're a church now.
They're a church now.
Yeah.
Here is the second principle. We believe that the institution of marriage was intended by God to be a permanent, lifelong relationship between a man and a woman. I see you nodding, June, regardless, because you agree with this.
Of course, I'm like, yes, I actually am going to use these services.
Yeah.
I believe in focus on the family's vision.
Regardless of trials, sickness, financial reverses, or emotional stresses that may ensue. So, in other words, divorce is like the worst thing that could happen. Divorce is the one thing we didn't want to happen. And you also need one man and one woman. No homo. This extends to, for instance, love one out. Have you ever heard of that?
Love one out. I have not heard of that. No, what is that?
Love one out was a national conference that was held annually between 1998 and 2009. And I hear this is just quoting again from their website, to provide a compassionate and comprehensive examination of the complex issues surrounding homosexuality and to offer the life-changing power of Jesus Christ.
Oh my God. So this is kind of where a lot of my knowledge about focus on the family and James Dobson comes from, because I feel I don't have a specific quote on this, but I'm pretty sure this is like, conversion therapy. We believe in conversion therapy.
Yes.
We think that if we get gays to go to church and also electroshock therapy, we can make them, air quote, normal again. Right. And that's like always been the belief of a lot of these people, because of course, as we go back to the concept of natalism, if we have more gay people, more trans people, more people with, as they view non-traditional lives or relationships, that will lead to less families, less birth rates, less children.
Because that's the fundamental purpose of the family, is procreation and advancement.
Before we move on, the reason I was nodding, that very first part of the statement of this principle, though we believe that the institution of marriage was intended by God to be permanent, reminded me. So we're recording this after Senator Angela Paxton, ex-wife of current Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, put out a tweet about a week ago where she says, "Today, after 38 years of marriage, I filed for divorce on biblical grounds."
Yeah.
And I saw that and I'm like, biblical grounds? You can just like do a normal divorce. What do you mean biblical grounds? And she follows this up by saying, "I believe marriage is a sacred covenant, and I earnestly pursued reconciliation. But in light of recent discoveries, I do not believe that it honors God or is loving to myself, my children, or can to remain in the marriage." And I just feel like that framing is in line with this principle. And it's just such a weird framing to me to like have to go to reconciliation about wanting to leave someone who I can imagine is a horrible husband for whatever reason. I don't know. She didn't say the reason, but to like put shame on yourself, where she said, I had to go to reconciliation and like declare it on biblical grounds, is such an unreal thing to me. But I guess people really do abide by that. And of course, people hate it. These people hate divorce. They do not want you to get divorced because they want these families to be permanent.
Yeah, and there are a lot of, to the point of like resources, right? One of the big things that they create resources for is helping what they call like marriages in crisis, right? And being like, how can we help people find a way forward? And it's one of those things where like on paper, how could you be against people who are having a bad time in their marriage, helping them to reconcile and find a good way forward? That just seems good.
That's like marriage counseling.
The problem is that it doesn't fundamentally come from this idea of how can these two people find a way forward that meets their needs both individually and together. It's they have to stay together because families are morally good and dissolving the family is morally bad.
It has nothing to do with their own desire or own happiness, because it is everything they have to do is for the goodness of God and his creation. That is, wow. Yeah.
By the way,
I can't believe this is a principle of this organization. I am like, I know you like, I don't know. I'm just stunned by this. This whole thing about the homosexuality part of it. Yeah. The marriage part of it is just fucking mind-boggling.
What if I told you that in 2020, Ken Paxton went on Focus on the Family radio? Because he did.
Oh, so he's a very godly man. He's he has what you're saying is he has a very hysterical wife.
That's
It's
right.
the classic bitch wife.
That's right. It was a historical
yeah.
wife because he was on an episode called Standing for Life During Coronavirus.
Oh, God, I can just imagine what they talk about on there. Jesus.
So I do want to now move on to the next principle because this is about children. We believe that children are a heritage from God and a blessing from His hand. We are therefore accountable to Him for raising, shaping, and preparing them for a life of service to His kingdom and to humanity.
Okay. Nothing about being like a fulfilled human being or finding success in life. It's about serving God and His kingdom.
Yes, and it is a life of service to God's kingdom and to humanity within that framing, but nothing about self-actualization here. You know, this goes back to the Christian perfection thing. They should become as holy as possible. They need to get that XP bar up, right? And this is, I should note, implicitly natalist positioning. This is not explicitly natalist, but it's absolutely implicitly natalist because if children are a heritage from God and a blessing from His hand, well, then we should have more of them, obviously.
Exactly. It's an Ouroboros of a principle.
Right.
It's godly to have kids to then shape them in God's image, which is a heritage from God, which implies,
And if you need help figuring out how to raise these kids, I have great news for you. James Dobson has written so many books about it.
See, this is the thing I kind of hate about how strategically smart James Dobson and these people are, is because I don't have a kid. I don't think you do. We've hung out in person. Yeah,
No,
I don't think you
kids.
have a kid. I didn't think so. I didn't see them.
They were hiding.
I was worried about that. But I think raising kids is genuinely probably really difficult. It's really intense. People probably are looking for guidance all the time. So he filled a niche where he knew people would be looking for help, looking for someone to impart advice. And who better than this person who had this tough childhood, probably has a couple of kids, to impart this knowledge, and who is godly.
And the other thing I'll say too is that a big piece of this also is about shielding children from the influences of the outside world, which they see as being corrupting. Raising, shaping, and preparing children for a life of service means making sure that they don't see the bad shit that is out there. And so part of what Focus on the Family does is, well, it's twofold. First of all, they have a lot of stuff about, like, here's what's going on in secular culture right now. They have a whole website and magazine. I don't think it's in print anymore, but it's an online magazine called Plugged In.
Okay.
If you ever want to have a good time, go to pluggedin.com and look up the review of Uncut Gems. It's so funny.
Oh, no, they're like, oh my God, is it like that one website that rates movies not on if they're good or not, but if they're woke or not?
It's kind of like that, yeah.
Oh my God. Can I just say, Plugged In, that's like an all right name, but I feel like Secular Watch, much better name. I feel like they really missed the mark with Plugged In.
The other big piece of it is that they have created an entire parallel media ecosystem for children. They have magazines. And for a long time, they had a teen boys magazine called Breakaway. They had a teen girls magazine called Brio. And by the way, I picked up a copy of Brio for you when I was at Focus on the Family last year. I forgot to give it to you when you were here.
Oh my God.
But I wanted to
I'll get it
help
one
you.
day.
I wanted to help you become a good Christian young woman. And I got the magazine. Breakaway is no longer in print, but Brio is for some reason. I don't know why.
Okay.
There's also
please get me Brio. I need to correct my course.
You got it. There's also Clubhouse magazine, which is for like little kids. And of course, there is the
my favorite of these
children's radio drama, Adventures in Odyssey, which I know we have exposed you and many others to on the Worst of All Possible Worlds.
Exposed is the perfect way to put it. It's like a radioactive, like nuclear site.
Yeah.
It's waste. It is being exposed.
Yeah, it's sort of like the phrase goated bite. Like once it's in your head, you're never going to be able to get it out.
Yeah. No, it's like, when a nuclear reactor melts down and it has that that containment site, that area where you walk up to it, you look at the uranium, the decaying uranium, and you die within a week is what this is. You get all sorts of cancers you've never heard of before.
Here's the next one, by the way. We've still got two principles left.
I'm having way too much fun with these principles.
Yeah, I love them.
This is destroying my mind. Okay.
We believe that human life is of inestimable worth and significance in all its dimensions, including the unborn, the aged, the widowed, the mentally handicapped, the unattractive.
They're like these. Oh my fucking
ugly
God.
people are beautiful in the eyes of the Lord.
We support ugly people rights. That's kind of awesome, honestly.
It's so good. The physically challenged and every other condition in which humanness is expressed from conception to the grave. And in terms of how this manifests, obviously it's being anti-abortion. And we talked about this a little bit on the episode about abortion that we did a couple weeks ago.
Right. Interestingly, of course, they don't have anything about sexual orientation included here. There's nothing about like gay people acceptance or anything like that. Because
Not
of course,
explicitly.
Okay.
It's implicit when it's talking about institution of marriage is a lifelong relationship between a man and a woman.
Right.
I do think that the more recent version of this does explicitly have stuff about gay people. Let me just double check real quick. Oh, they added a principle.
Oh my God. Okay, let's do that one at the end, the bonus principle.
Okay, well, I'll give you the bonus principle later.
I love the bonus principle. God was like, oh shit, I forgot about this principle. That's like Catholics adding a new commandment. Like we actually have 11 commandments now.
Okay, so here is what was once upon a time the final principle before the sixth principle was unearthed. We believe that God has ordained three basic institutions: the church, the family, and the government, for the benefit of all humankind. The family exists to propagate the race and to provide a safe and secure... I think they mean the human race, but that is a weird little piece of phrasing there, isn't it?
Very weird, yeah. A little Freudian.
And to provide a safe and secure haven in which to nurture, teach, and love the younger generation. The church exists to minister to individuals and families by sharing the love of God and the message of repentance and salvation through the blood of Jesus Christ. The government exists to maintain cultural equilibrium and provide a framework for social order.
Red flags are going up everywhere. Alarms. This was another one of my big concerns when I was really young, where it was always very explicit. They always talked about this very explicitly. Religious people at this time, and even still to this day, they're still trying to work towards this, is breaking down the barriers of the religious state and the political state, and like blending the two, giving the religious power in the government, because obviously is it the Constitution?
Well, the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, the Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, I'm assuming you mean.
Yes, the founders have always been pretty clear about their intent with keeping religion and the state separate.
That sentence, the government exists to maintain cultural equilibrium and to provide a framework for social order, is,
that's terrifying.
In my estimation, explicitly fascist.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Because cultural equilibrium means that culture ought to be, that the government ought to control what culture is.
Yes.
And provide a framework for social order. I mean,
we know what the social order they want in place is. They're not shy about that social order.
We know what their first principles are. And so their conception of political society is basically government is going to enforce these norms. And non-Christians, I guess, can theoretically exist in this society if they want to, but they certainly don't have an active place in this society as acting agents in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, this is them explicitly, not even implicitly, explicitly saying that they believe that they're allies in the government. Probably Ronald Reagan at the time, Donald Trump, of course, now, with the way that Donald Trump's administration has been erasing the acknowledgement of trans people, even bisexual people most recently, and like historically gay figures in American history. Like this is that manifest. What Donald Trump has been doing is this principle, using the government to maintain cultural equilibrium.
Yep. Okay, are you ready for the bonus principle?
Yes, I'm excited. I don't even know what this could fucking be. I feel like they covered it all here.
Well, we believe God created humans in his image.
Yes!
Intentionally and immutably, male and female.
Yes!
Each bringing unique and complementary qualities to sexuality and relationships.
No.
Sexuality is a glorious gift from God to be offered back to him, either in marriage for procreation, that's the first thing on the list, procreation, union, and mutual delight, or in celibacy for undivided devotion to Christ. Christians are called to proclaim the truth and beauty of God's design and the redemption of sexual brokenness in our lives and culture through Jesus Christ.
I cannot believe they had the transgender update.
Yeah,
they had the transgender homosexual update where they were like, okay, this is getting a little too woke for our society here. We have to ensure that our focus on the family base doesn't get it twisted here at all. And the inclusion of procreation is actually quite interesting, especially after doing the IVF episode, because I think, and still they still have not set a very clear determination on IVF, but the inclusion of procreation, I think, implies that they're generally leaning against IVF as a procedure because they value procreation a little bit more than the alternative.
Sure, but a man and a woman in a loving marriage can, if they lack, I think their position, and it's not explicit, right? But I think that their implicit position, working from these principles, would be, because God's design is one man and one woman in marriage, and because the primary purpose of marriage is procreation, if there is a situation in which a man and a woman are unable to conceive naturally, something like IVF or other forms of family planning become a moral imperative.
Oh, I see. Because then, of course, they can continue the family. They can strengthen the family. Okay, I see. Yes.
But I'm certain that they would not be in favor of IVF for instance, like a lesbian couple wanting to have a kid, or, a trans couple where, you know what I mean? Like,
because that would go against the cultural equilibrium, as they've stated in the previous principle.
Exactly.
I really just hope more of these organizations, if we ever look into more organizations, I hope they have more of these principles, just like the Promise Keepers. These are just, I really love when they write little guidelines,
well, it's instructive, right? It helps you understand what grounds what they are doing, because these are, to me, these all seem kind of silly, but they're also deadly fucking serious.
Yeah.
Every single thing that they're saying in every single one of these principles is the roadmap for what they want to do. And if you look at Project 2025, on the social side of the platform, it's just this. So principles are one thing, right? But execution is also very important, executing on these principles. And something interesting started happening after the turn of the millennium, which is that focus on the family started transitioning away from James Dobson. As I mentioned, in 1999, they published that succession plan. But the idea of the succession plan as written at that time was like, maybe in 10 years we'll need a new leader, but for the time being, things are pretty chill. We'll figure it out. In 2003, 4 years after that plan was published, a man named Don Hodel, who I guess worked in the Reagan administration originally, took over as president of Focus. And then a year later, 2004, Jim Daly, who was an early employee of Focus on the Family, takes over as chief operating officer, COO. And one of the first things that he does as COO is he spins up a new parallel organization to Focus called Focus on the Family Action, which then is later rebranded to CitizenLink, and after that it's rebranded to the Family Policy Alliance. And the idea here is that this would allow Focus on the Family proper to present itself as a less explicitly political organization. And instead, all of that advocacy and action work would go over to Focus on the Family Action. Now, you might be wondering, wait, doesn't the Family Research Council exist? Didn't Dobson spin up an organization for exactly this purpose, like
did that go away?
A decade and a half earlier, it didn't go away. This was almost purely optical. If you look up Family Policy Alliance, they publish newsletters and shit, but they only do like $1.5 million of revenue every year.
Okay, so it's way smaller than
Way
Focus on the
smaller.
Family ever was.
Yes. Just for comparison, by the way, Focus on the Family in 2015, because again, remember, they haven't had to report
They're a church
revenue
now.
since then, because now they're a church.
Yeah.
But in 2015, they did $86 million in revenue.
Fucking Christ.
So that gives you a sense of that this is actually kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Here's what was going on. Dobson's rhetoric was getting too heated and too overt for Focus on the Family to keep comfortably operating in the mode that they were operating in, because Dobson fucking hates gay people.
Yeah. Like I said, this is him hating gay people is the only reason I had ever learned about who he was.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in this sphere of religion. He just really did hate gay people, especially in the early 2000s. People were still homophobic, really, really homophobic, but it was moving away from that finally.
Mm-hmm. And in 2005, Jim Daly consolidates his power further. He becomes president and CEO. So at this point, Dobson still has the radio show and he has a seat on the board, but that's it. He no longer has any say in the day-to-day operations of Focus on the Family as an organization. So I want to play, just to sort of give you a sense of what Dobson sounded like at this point, I'm just going to play you a clip here. This is from Focus on the Family Radio, October 6, 2005.
Why will gay marriage set the table for polygamy? Because there's no place to stop once that Rubicon has been crossed. Historically, the definition of marriage has rested on a foundation of tradition, legal precedent, theology, and an overwhelming support of the people. After the introduction of marriage between homosexuals, however, it will be supported by nothing more substantial than the opinion of a single judge or by a black-robed panel of justices. After they have reached that dubious decision, the family will consist of little more than someone's interpretation of rights. Given that unstable legal climate, it is certain that some self-possessed judge somewhere will soon rule that 3 men or 3 women can marry, or 5 men and 2 women, or 4 and 4. Who'll be able to deny them that right? The guarantee is implied, we will be told, by the Constitution. Those who disagree will continue to be seen as hate mongers and bigots. Indeed, those charges are already being leveled against Christians who espouse biblical values. How about group marriage, or marriage between daddies and little girls? How about marriage between a man and his donkey? Anything allegedly linked to civil rights will be doable, and the legal underpinnings for marriage will have been destroyed. It has happened in the Netherlands. Young people are not getting married. When you go in that direction, you confuse the meaning of marriage, and then it is destroyed. The family's destroyed. That is the foundation for Western civilizations, and I tell you, it will bring the destruction of this nation and many others if we go in that direction.
This is, again, I think where in the 2000s, the religious right really did lose the plot. I mean, they always lost the plot, but like from a narrative and an optics perspective, really started to lose the plot because they would start saying shit like this. They would do those slippery slope.
He sounds like a lunatic.
Yeah,
and this
any person that did the slippery slope argument always was like, all right, come the fuck on,
because this isn't
dude.
just slippery slope. I mean, this sounds deranged, and I think that like losing the plot is a great way of putting it. I think that people heard Dobson saying stuff like this. I mean, just to sort of give you a sense of how Dobson was getting covered in the media more broadly right now, I have here a headline from NBC News, February 1, 2005, so earlier that year. And the headline reads, Dobson says he never said SpongeBob was gay.
All right. All right, man. Okay, so yeah, he's really just like he's like, all right, Grandpa, let's get you to bed.
It's time for bed, Grandpa. Exactly. Yeah. And so I also then wanted to play you something else. And this is from Jim Daly, who is at this time actually still president and CEO of Focus on the Family.
Okay.
As I said, a big piece of sort of what he came in to do was make Focus on the Family a more optically appealing organization while still holding to the extremely reactionary roots. Again, the principles, they've stayed the same.
Right.
So here is Guy Raz from NPR's All Things Considered interviewing Jim Daly on February 12, 2012.
Let's just sort of talk broadly about Focus on the Family. What did you set out to do when you took over? I mean, did you have a specific idea to kind of maybe depoliticize the organization a little bit?
Well, the thing about the politics of morality, a lot of people talk about we should keep these things separate, but so much in the public square deals with morality, the issue of abortion, the issue of marriage. And those things are not things I'll be backing up on. I believe as Christians we live in a democracy. We need to participate in this. And I think those voices need to be heard, just as those who oppose those things, their voices should be heard.
Jim, let me ask you about same-sex marriage. As you are well aware, and we just had this ruling in California about Proposition 8, it seems that the momentum is sort of moving in favor of accepting same-sex marriage across California, Washington State this past week. If, in fact, this is something that, let's say within the next 5 or 10 years, will become an accepted right nationally, what then for you? I mean, your position doesn't change, but how do you sort of deal with that?
I think, I took a lot of criticism in an article in Christianity Today for saying if you look at the research, those under 40 particularly are heavily in favor of supporting same-sex marriage.
It's a fact.
And I get that. Yeah. And I was, unfortunately, I guess, one of the Christian leaders that at least admitted that. But you do need to have your eyes wide open. I think it is detrimental, and I think it will devastate and deconstruct traditional marriage in ways that we can't even anticipate right now. At the same time, man, I understand it. I understand the idea that two people, loving adults, consenting adults, what right does somebody have? I get that argument, and we don't wish ill on anyone. And that's one of the things that is unfortunate in this debate, that there's a lot of hot rhetoric that goes back and forth. We're trying to stand on principles that we live our lives to as Christians, and when we look at the Bible, we're trying to do that. We're trying to voice an opinion in the public square.
I mean, they're on the back foot here very clearly at this time. They were very worried about losing the cultural mandate, and of course they pull it back to the family. They pull it back to like, oh, it's the breaking down of the traditional family, which is the breakdown of society.
And I think what really pisses me off the most about this is that substantively, this is actually no different from what Dobson was saying.
Yeah.
It's just that the tone is appropriate to NPR.
He was PC. He was very politically correct.
He was. He one might even say woke. But like, it's still the same old bullshit.
Absolutely.
And anybody who knows what these people are like will see through that bullshit immediately. It's infuriating.
Yeah. Because they're speaking to, as you pointed out, I mean, it was NPR. It's a lot more of like a centrist, maybe even way more liberal-leaning audience.
Exactly.
So he wants to come off as very reasonable, or just has like the concerns for the right reasons.
Right.
That's absolutely the method there.
But again, in terms of the substance of it, if what you're saying is that gay people getting married threatens religious liberties, that means gay people can't get married. You're not really able to have a like reasoned disagreement about this, where it's like, well, you think this, but I think this. At the end of the day, policy has to be one or the other, and it's hiding the ball to act as if this is just a disagreement on what you think that a marriage should be. Because if it's a disagreement on what you think a marriage should be, then who cares if gay people are getting married? You can still continue to promote what your idea of a family is. But this is not a matter of private disagreement. This is a matter of enacting public policy, which has been part of Focus's thing from the very fucking beginning.
Absolutely. It is so wild that they can take, and of course it comes from the religious backdrop, but gay marriage as a threat to other people, to them, to themselves, to society is just absurd. It comes with the reality that they would have to take rights away from people. Horrible, horrifying.
Well,
evil.
And to the point of taking rights away from people, Focus on the Family's sort of crowning policy achievement came in 2008 when California passed Proposition 8, which made it illegal to get gay married in the state of California. This was sort of a joint effort between Focus on the Family and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They were really the two big forces driving this thing forward. But as we just heard in that clip, in 2012, that decision got rolled back in the state of California.
Thank God.
And then just a couple years later, Obergefell v. Hodges came down and made gay marriage legal nationwide. But at this point, again, Dobson had become a serious liability to the organization because he still had full control of his radio broadcast. And in 2009, he finally got forced out fully. He resigned from the board of directors. He was removed from his post as host of Focus on the Family Radio, and he left to start a new organization, the James Dobson Family Institute, which he established in 2010, 1 year later.
Is that as effective? Has it been as iconic as the other? No? Okay.
No, but it's still the same bullshit. I mean, it is funny. Their offices are actually just down the hill from Focus on the Family. Focus on the Family's HQ is on top of a big hill in Colorado Springs.
It's like the chum bucket. This is to go back to SpongeBob. It's the chum bucket.
It is. It's the chum bucket to Focus's Krusty Krab. Imagine a world in which Plankton had also founded the Krusty Krab, you know?
Well, we don't know the full lore yet. SpongeBob is still somehow airing. That could come out one day.
He established that organization, immediately started a new broadcast called Family Talk. Format is identical to the old Focus on the Family, same distribution network, but not quite as big of a reach. And it's worth noting, Family Talk is still a daily broadcast. Dobson hosts once a week now because he's old as shit and sounds like it. Just to give you a sense of what he sounds like these days, his most recent broadcast was a couple days ago, and it was talking with this guy about how masculinity is good, actually, and so-called toxic masculinity, well, that's just sin.
There are an awful lot of men who live sinful lives, many of them involved in pornography, and some of them abuse children. There are a lot of sinful men and a lot of outright jerks out there. So let's make it clear. I'm not talking about those men when I say there's something wrong with their criticism of all men.
Not all men.
I like that he said jerks. That was he invoked a little bit of a Norm Macdonald.
It's very Norm. This guy's a real jerk.
No, that's crazy. I mean, honestly, I'll be totally real. He doesn't sound as bad as I thought for being 89 fucking years old.
It's true. Some other fun titles of recent broadcasts, by the way. When Culture Hates You.
Culture hates white men.
When
that's
culture
something that's
hates you.
Culture hates Christians.
Yeah,
culture
for
hates married people.
Stages of a Woman.
That I don't like that one.
I don't like it either.
That's a scary. That could be a lot of things that are all evil.
I believe in American patriotism.
Okay. Cool.
And
cool, man.
And this is the one that really made my ears perk up. The Joys of Raising a Large Family.
Natalism. The natalism bells. We should get some natalism bells.
That's a good idea. If anybody listening to this has a good idea for a little drop of these are the natalism bells and wants to throw it together, let us know. We need more fun drops. I think that's the thing this show is missing.
I agree. But no, he is absolutely on the birth rate kick right now.
He is. And so I have here a quote from an article, February 2023, which is called Depopulation of the Earth and What It Means for the Human Family. Tragically, Once a people group steps away from a God-driven moral understanding of the sanctity of human life in the institution of the family, life itself becomes superfluous. Abortion, contraception, and surgical alternatives have allowed couples to opt out of parenting if they choose. Children are perceived by many young couples as being too expensive, burdensome, time-consuming, and often stressful to rear. Other young adults elect not to bear children because they cherish their freedom, independence, and personal fulfillment. They have a right not to bear children, of course, but serious consequences emerge when unfruitfulness is chosen by a majority of couples. A nation can reach a tipping point from which it cannot recover. It is called the point of no return, and many nations are dangerously close to it. Some have already gone over the cliff and don't know it yet.
Wow. No, he is worried about that. I feel like in his old age, this is probably his greatest concern.
Yeah.
Because especially at the time of when he started to found Focus on the Family, from my knowledge of looking at this shit a lot in the last month and a half, the birth rate was still above replacement levels,
Yeah.
which is the 2.1 in those days. So people weren't really worried about that. There was the idea of that there was going to be the population boom or the bomb.
Yes.
So that was not really on his radar probably when he first started talking about parenting. But of course, now he sees this coming, I guess. Yeah.
In fact, early on, he was talking quite a bit about the idea, the fear of overpopulation, which he thought was an excuse for people to get more abortions. He was
oh, wow.
The reason that they're saying that the earth is going to be overpopulated is so that they can set up family planning techniques and abort a whole bunch of people who otherwise would get to grow up and become, Christian, whatever the fuck.
Yeah, so it's they're trying to scare you. They're trying to do this. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I also have a clip from another episode of Family Talk Radio. And this is him talking about the idea of overpopulation and articulating what I think is essentially a natalist position.
Some motivation for the abortion movement is to prevent the world from being overpopulated. The truth of the matter is the opposite is true. And Western civilization is declining throughout Europe. It's not only Western civilization, it's Japan, right. It's Russia, it's Latin America. It is amazing how young people look at children and say, this is going to cost a lot of money and this is going to invade what I want to do with my life. And as a result, they decline to have children. And one of our presidential candidates, Hillary Clinton, just said recently that America should pay for abortions around the world. Why? Because there are not enough children being born? No, she's assuming what I just said. There's going to be an overpopulation.
This line of thinking, I feel is born come almost entirely out of a conspiracy theory, because the way he portrays it and a lot of these people portray it, it's these people are doing these policies like abortion, like this, and that, to ensure there's less of a population. And I feel like they project that conspiracy onto people when it's just, that's not what's happening here. It is totally a conspiracy theory, which leans into the white replacement type conspiracies.
It's also so interesting in that clip where he initially is it's Western civilization. And then he backs up a sec and he's like, well, actually, it's also Japan. It's also Latin America. The reality is that there's two things happening. As economies develop and women are able to enter the workforce and achieve a higher standard of living, that lowers birth rates. But there's also just been a global decline in birth rates everywhere.
And no one has really truly nailed down why yet. That's also part of the problem, is everyone is still trying to figure out exactly what has caused that pretty uniform global decline. And on your first point, someone that I've been researching for the next episode, Lyman Stone, he talks about this idea of workism with abundance author Derek Thompson. He apparently did a piece with him, very interestingly, about how women being in the workforce has given them a different purpose. And that is also another fear of like this Western decline, is that, oh, women have gotten a little too many rights.
Well, June, would you say that as a woman, would you say that this podcast and doing the work of this podcast gives you fulfillment?
Oh yeah, I feel
good.
a lot of fulfillment. I loved college. I love learning. I love researching. I love learning things. Learning things is very fulfilling to me. Absolutely. Yeah.
I agree. And you know what? If you listening to this podcast right now have learned something, let us know what you learned. You can send us an email, which is illconceivedpod@gmail.com. We check that with some regularity. And also, if you want to leave us a review and let us know what about the show you liked, please do. We still get weird guys who like to leave us bad reviews where they clearly haven't listened to the show.
I love our weird guys.
I don't. I hate them. Almost as much as I hate James Dobson.
I think, you know what? I think James Dobson's a little worse.
Yeah, he is.
What I'll say.
He is.
Yeah.
He's worse than the Nazis who leave us 1-star reviews, and that's fucking crazy. Anyway, we'll see you next week. My name's Josh.
I'm June.
Bye.
See ya.